this is a big one too, and sort of not to stand on a soapbox, but I mean, I think it's true. Sort of, think backwards by always moving forward. And what I mean by that is have a good picture of what the end game looks like. Truly have a good picture. Know what your investors want, whether it's your seed investor, and so that little end game, or whether it's your VC or mezzanine or sort of growth capital. Know what they need and want. Know what the sort of cold execution folks of the world, the Prudentials, the JP Morgans, the commercial banks, the cash equity, private equity guys. Know what their returns are. Know what their benchmarks are, so that you can start to size up your project day one. It could be scary because you may want to abandon the effort because you've figured out what the end game looks like. I can speak to sort of what I've seen as benchmarks, et cetera, but what's great about wind and solar and renewable energy, we're only selling one product, or energy efficiency and savings. Pretty easy to measure, pretty easy to model. It's difficult as heck to sort of get to and achieve. This is another one. Understand how decisions and actions today then go and impact what your project and situation needs to look like at the end game. Go slow versus fast tracking. I would call our solar effort going slow. We could have easily spent more money and sort of built up more land and built up more pipeline. We as a company shoot for batting average. So that means we work on a few projects, but with a higher probability of reaching the finish line. You can do that when you're a 30-year-old renewable energy company that has been around the block. A lot of other companies, may take a different approach, more of a shotgun, sort of, low percentage conversion, but a number of opportunities. We don't know, what lies behind every rock. Many of these will fall to the wayside. They're just two approaches, definitely two approaches. Sort of our approach allows us to stay small. We're still privately held, three main principles, about a team of 20. Yet we sort of, have to sharpen our elbows and play with the likes of, Sempra, Duke Energy, the country of Florida, and the likes, Edison Mission, you name it. Compete with those guys for the scale that we're trying to deal with. Staffing, of course. For us, it starts with our leadership. Jerry Monkhouse, our chairman, he brought on his partner shortly thereafter, Gary Hartke, and they've been sort of the commanding force of the company for over 30 years. And forging relationships with the stakeholders, your investors, proponents, and your opponents. The sooner you know who those folks are, the better you are able to deal with them going forward. You may have some folks you'll never convince that you're a viable project, solution, opportunity, etc. But reach out to them because you're going to have to manage those issues or they can come back and bite you, usually in a piece of litigation. Sort of just to echo some of the key themes and tell you a little bit more about Canon. As I mentioned before, we've had the long-term sort of commitment from our key management. New markets, customers, and policies. The company developed into Tehachapi way back in the 80s, wind projects. Went overseas in the 90s. A lot of projects, incentives, programs here in the United States dried up. So, Canon did what it knew best, which is, hey, we still need to build things. I mean, that's kind of why we get up and out of bed every day. And built in places like Gujarat, India, Italy, Greece, Turkey, etc. Again, it was a small team always, but with a sort of unique set of expertise that they were able to take, globally. Obviously working with some local partners, but it was, Canon's ability to sort of bring that expertise, which is sort of take vision and turn it into reality. Develop, begin the sort of, actually we perform our own construction management, and then we're able to also staff and operate a project. So a lot of the decisions we're making today are keyed off of how we believe the project needs to be at the very end, at the end game. We came back into the U.S. market along the crisis The post Enron energy crisis, that's always interesting. Crisis is always a good opportunity. Despite what you read in the papers and what folks are telling you, sort of, to stay away from. Sometimes, you go opposite the herd. And that was kind of the sort of, it's difficult. California is a difficult place to permit a large scale anything. And it's even more difficult, and our biggest battle are environmentalists or sort of folks who use environmental policies again to fight this sort of good fight that we're trying to fight. But we put together a thesis as a company to basically build the project outside of California and to deliver the power back in. That project started in 2003, broke ground in 2008, and we're looking to expand from 400 megawatts to 500. We've started construction already, and we'll do that by the end of next year. But it took 5 years, and there were tons of points in time where we could have just either sold it or literally could have just collapsed on itself. And capital, and how do you get it? I mean, for instance, we've done different things. We currently own and operate the project, but in the past, we've sold an entire portfolio. We built a turnkey project where it was sold at commercial operation, commonly referred to as COD. But for instance, on the solar front right now, we'd be seeking relationships with manufacturers and having them sort of partner up with us in order to develop projects. And so that's something that's a model that has to be, I think, an option for you. With the dearth of capital, let's say, from the VC world. I think a lot of folks are buying away from Cleantech. They got burned. They're not able to exit because, a lot of them thought that, it's similar to early stage technology investing, and it's not. It's, energy primarily lives in a pretty boring world. Regulatory, utilities, a transmission grid that is basically the same as it was 75 years ago. I mean, how many other industries, sort of act and perform or have sort of an installed structure like that and sort of don't care to change too quickly? Again, I think there are lots of restrictions, and then you go from, you have different grid systems across various states, so things that are common practice in California are not common practice in Arizona or in New Jersey. Everything from a permitting to a grid connection to a power purchase contract, you name it. The one common aspect are these rules, IRS regulations, et cetera, but those are constantly changing. It's always interesting and never a boring day. But I promise you, the more you keep it boring, the more success and sort of more fun you'll have to play another day. There are some projects out there that right now look like they're teetering, but commitment and sort of hitting your milestones and working and educating your investors, your stakeholders, and your opponents will go a far way to achieving success.
Okay, thank you.